Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode number 444. Being recorded April 5th, 2017. Isn't there like a car commercial or something that's like the numbers all fours?
I'm just disappointed we couldn't do it on April 4th. We really missed an opportunity here.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Okay, fine. I'm Allyn Mamatano.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Ken Addison.
Stand in for Ryan Shrout, sort of. Kind of.
I think we lost Jeremy.
Oh, no.
Yeah, my connection went.
I heard him. He's just a still image.
Oh, it's gold.
I still hear him.
It's gold.
We could just, yeah, he's just stuck. These Canadian packets of video have been stopped at the border.
Thank you, Shaw.
Oh. All right. Well, maybe that'll just cycle your video, Jeremy. Yeah, so welcome everybody. We're here recording a podcast Wednesday night like we always do. Podcast at pcpro.com is the email, which I don't even know if we check anymore.
We don't.
Oh, okay. No. So make sure you email.
I think you should still email it, but just know we're not going to check it.
Yeah, just
we might check it one day, but
email it.
It's a gamble. You might win, you might not.
Yeah,
maybe.
If you send the email, you could be at the top of the inbox when we finally do check it one day.
It's like roulette.
Yeah. You never know.
pcpro.com/podcast is, or pcpro.com/subscribe is where you can get to that page right there that Ken's got up, where you give us your name, your email, and we just have like an email blast that goes out before we record this podcast or any other live events that we may be streaming at the time, of which, sometimes we have some cool stuff. Twitter.com/Ryan Shrout is how you can tweet right now at the boss, who is not here. He's off somewhere doing some stuff. So feel free to tweet away. Yeah. And Twitter.com/PCPer also goes to the boss. So, you can just go to Twitter at both of them.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Tell him get his butt back to the office or something.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Because he was out like, what, 2-3 weeks in a row?
We're going to have to do a count of how many podcasts he misses this year.
Yeah.
And see if it's greater than...
He's batting 500.
He's, I told him we brought more people on. He had to be like more managerial. He's totally taken that.
Yeah.
He's taken that to task.
He's off playing golf every weekend.
He's in
Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. All right. Anyhow, let's talk about the next thing, which is the Patreon page, which also happens to send a message to the boss. And he usually reads the names and the Patreon amount changes during the podcast, but he's not here. And I don't have his phone. So apologies for not reading them if you happen to do that during this podcast, but I encourage you to help us pay the bills regardless.
Just know that Ryan will read it.
He will
himself.
Read it. He will see it. He may not read it on the stream, but he
might
will
be
read
in
it.
public. He might be in a crowded area.
That's true.
If you make it lewd enough, who knows?
Yeah, your challenge is to make Ryan laugh as hard as possible in an awkward family situation.
Yeah.
All right. Jeremy, you want to pimp something right away before we even get to stuff, right?
Oh, I suppose there's something fun going on this weekend.
Okay.
The Fragging Frogs are putting together their 15th VLAN. This has been going on since April of 2003. So if you know nothing about this, there is a link which will take you to the forum page where you can introduce yourself to Lenny, sign up for the forums, and get yourself in for a lot of fun this coming Saturdays, kicking off at 10 a.m. There's a list of games, which I think is over 24 now. Already 40 people have signed up to be part of this event, and there will be prizes. Some of them are unannounced. Some of them we know are coming from Josh and Maury and the other guys at PC Per. So not only going to have a lot of fun, you could win some really kick-ass prizes. We've given away some incredible stuff. Lenny usually has gotten ID to give away some rather unique items that you would probably not have gotten any other way. So it's definitely worth signing up. Show up, sign on to the TeamSpeak, and win yourself some prizes where you get to shoot a bunch of your friends.
Sweet. Yeah, we should probably try to join that.
I got a Quake
all
Champions
day.
Quake Champions beta invite for this weekend. So if I'm playing PC games, it's not going to be with them.
Well, I bet you at least one of them has a Quake beta.
I'm not going to be playing PC games this weekend, so it's an empty thread. But
yeah, I mean, it looked cool at QuakeCon when we saw it.
yeah,
So
I'll try to play 10 minutes.
do we know when
of
that's
it.
supposed to come out? Like,
I don't know.
because it's beta now.
I don't even remember signing up for the beta. I just saw an invite in my inbox today.
They're just sending you stuff like we don't know you,
It's
but
not
here.
like my press account or anything. It's just like, well, I don't have a press account, but like it's not my PC per email. It's just my regular Gmail. Apparently, I signed up at some point.
Okay. All right. You want to get into the reviews? I guess. Yeah. All right.
Meh.
Well,
Is Josh dead?
Yeah. So I would just check in with Josh. Like, is he alive?
I'm here.
He's there.
I'm just
okay.
not talking.
Well, that's wow.
That
You haven't.
makes a very unexciting podcast.
Well, listen, clearly, you need to start playing the drinking game, buddy.
Hey, catch up, man.
Yeah. Well, that's
Perfect.
That's half full still. Like you gotta.
No, I'm a pessimist.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure which way I should go with that statement, and apparently I was wrong. All right, so weekend review. Got a few things up here. Asus Strix Z270E gaming motherboard review. Maury wrote this guy up. How many Z270 board reviews have we done already?
He's probably done quite a few.
He's just been like chugging these guys out. Unfortunately, I did not get to read this guy before the review
Well,
or before
see,
the podcast.
this motherboard has
It looks-
everything and the kitchen
Yeah,
sink,
it looks
essentially.
like it's just loaded to the hilt here. Okay. How much is it?
I don't know.
That's the important question.
It's got to be like $5.
About 350.
Maybe $5.99.
I like
Need about, yeah.
the first comment. First comment.
Amazon for $210. If
It's not
That's
bad. Well, it's
not-
a Strix E.
Oh, 200 even.
Before we move on, the storage editor in me has to comment on something. So his last weakness listed is lack of SATA Express.
Have you seen a usable sex port? What are you going to plug into it?
So first comment totally called him out. Lack of SATA Express. That's not a con. Like,
I mean,
it's just-
Well, no, it is literally a con. Just the other
It's
meaning.
true. Oh man.
but Asus was the company that made that USB 3.1 front panel add-in that used the SATA Express connector.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
you go.
I mean,
the one
they
used for
were-
SATA Express. You can't do that with
And
this.
they were the company that initially like sent out a little adapter board so we could test SATA things plugged into SATA Express, like so we could plug in PCI things.
Yeah.
Even though SATA Express is only a buy two.
I thought it was by one connection.
No, it's a buy two PCI link.
Oh man, that's so much bandwidth.
So it's just like what do you? It's the two. Basically, it's two SATAs and a buy two PCI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Why? Like why?
It wasn't a bad idea because it was before M.2, like it predated M.2
Sure.
by a long shot. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if someone like the interface was ahead of the controllers.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
It's
was
ahead of the
just-
peripherals is what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Occasionally that works, sometimes it doesn't.
where I am still looking for a price on this. Oh, that's not
200
bad.
bucks.
$200.
Listen to Jeremy. $200.
$200 for a loaded
don't listen
Z270
to me.
board?
It's a Strix E.
You
Okay.
say that
Economy.
like
You say that like it
Efficiency.
means something. Tell me. What does it mean?
Because it's not an F or a G or an H.
extreme.
Does it mean extreme? Does it mean No, don't
Never
finish
mind.
that word. Don't finish the word.
Erasing.
Asus was prepared for some stiff competition.
Yeah. See, now we got you talking, and we immediately regretted that decision.
Looks like it's available for under $200 on
Yeah,
a couple of sites.
Yep.
$200 on Newegg.
$190. I mean,
Wow,
that's
the E, the G, the F, and the I are all about the same price.
I mean, you got
That board
USB
looks-
3.1,
yeah.
Type A ports. You got dual
What's
Y4
really-
M.2.
What's missing? What's really missing on this board that somebody might want? Like, because I'm looking for it, and it's got M.2.
high speed
Well,
memory?
it's the CMOS battery placement is poor.
No. it's okay.
No, it's awful.
No, he
Oh,
says
it's
it's
under the-
four.
it
You
was-
have to
it's
say
under
GPU.
your-
You have to remove the
Second
GPU.
GPU
Yeah.
slot.
Does he know yet? Have we told him that it's a jumper you move over and it basically like opens the circuit and shorts it out and you don't have to pull the battery?
You mean a button
Maybe
on
he
these
has
motherboards?
custom
Oh, you mean there's a
enamel
button that just
batteries
does
he
it?
likes to
There've been
look
clear
at.
CMOS buttons on motherboards for a long time.
Well, we got to find the button before we make
Hey,
that
it
bold
doesn't always
statement.
work. So if you want to really do it, you got to remove the battery.
You just
Maury
take a
is-
screwdriver and you put it over the contacts.
Maury
and it's fine.
Maury is serious about his CMOS resetting.
It is, but you know what? There's no armor on this, so that's that's another couple of bucks off.
That's true. I mean, I
Yeah.
personally, I don't really, I'm not
Doesn't
going to
have the
spend.
most amount of VRMs, but it's not bad.
Oh yeah. Actually, I can tell.
Yeah, but
there's
like,
not as many phases there.
does that even matter?
It's probably enough for most people. There's actually two M.2s on this board.
Yeah, it's 2x4 M.2s.
Huh. With the RAID?
Yeah.
Are they behind the?
Yeah,
Well, sometimes they don't wire them that way.
they're probably both behind.
That's very nice.
It also has that funky USB 3.1 connector on it, too.
Yeah, the front
Kinda-
panel header.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that really tiny.
Oh, look at this picture of this motherboard.
Look at that awesome picture. There's that new USB connector. Interesting. All right. Well, I mean,
Still not
and
finding the clear CMOS jumper.
It just looks nice too.
yeah, it looks like a nice board. It's like shades of
kind
gray.
of monochrome.
Yeah, it's like monochrome shades of gray kind of thing. Which actually, I should comment, if you're a person that puts RGB lighting in your case, you don't have to worry about the lighting only looking good with certain. Because RGB lighting only works so well if your motherboard is like orange. Like some of the colors don't work
Yeah.
right because the board is only reflecting orange.
Yeah.
Right. So
Now, there was a con listed that it didn't have RGB headers or something.
That is not a con.
yeah.
no,
I mean,
I'm not
it-
saying it's not a con, but
It has two of the headers for LED strips. The con was that you can't configure that stuff from the BIOS.
oh,
So you have to use
have
the
to use
Windows
their-
application to do it.
yeah.
Which
Okay.
okay.
I mean, sure.
I don't really install motherboard applications that often, so I can see how that would be a negative.
A person that's really blinging out their case and has RGB lighting dancing to whatever, like they probably have, they're not going to mind installing the utility, is my point. Like if
Yeah.
they're going that far, they're just going to install the utility so they can, who wants to go back into your BIOS every time you want to change the color? Anyway, you're going to want to do it from your desktop, right? It's like,
But if you just always wanted the colors to be purple,
yeah.
like you had a purple
I wa-
case and you just always wanted the LEDs to be purple.
I
that'd be
wonder.
nice to
I
just be
wonder
able
if
to do that from
it's the
BIOS.
kind of thing where the BIOS might save the number, but just might not have ability to change it. So you might be able to install the thing, change it to purple, just uninstall the app, and just be done with it.
Probably.
And it might just always be purple.
Yeah.
Who knows? All right. Cool. Looks like a cool. I'm still impressed with the price coming. That's lower than I was expecting for a Z270 board.
I mean, it's not the top. They're necessarily top in the end board, but
Sure.
it seems to have just about every feature. That
Yeah. That's all I
Think of.
really. If I'm buying a board, I don't care so much about the bling and the looks as like what's installed and what I'm going to use, the features on the board, right? Like, and that's got all the stuff that I would.
Yeah.
All right, next. Holy crap!
Yeah.
Ken Addison is
These
the
are not
author.
$200.
Who dat?
Ken Addison is the author of a review.
That
On-
doesn't seem right. We
on
should probably
PC
move on. I think that's a mistake.
That's something, and it's like a NVIDIA Pascal Quadro Roundup, like GPU
what are you
testing?
trying to say here, Alan?
It doesn't say Ryan Shrout.
I
It's
do a lot of GPU
article?
testing.
Okay. I'm impressed. That's awesome. Take it away.
Yeah. So essentially here we had an opportunity to check out a fairly wide range of NVIDIA's latest Quadro lineup. Alan's scrolling, so I don't have to scroll. What a nice guy.
I'm scrolling. I just realized Ken started talking and stopped scrolling the machine through the article.
I can only do
It's like
one
here,
thing at a
it's-
time.
Okay.
You can't talk and scroll.
No, I can't talk.
I'm
and
chewing
scroll.
Ken's gum for him right now.
Yeah.
Can you rub your belly and tap your head while you're talking?
Oh God, no! I can't even do that without talking. Anyway, we took a look at the Quadro P2000, P4000, and P5000. Not the top of the end P6000 with the GP100 GPU, the big beast of a GPU. It's not to disappoint anyone, but essentially these are close analogs to GeForce cards. So the P2000 is about a GTX 1060 with 128 fewer shaders, slightly lower clock speed, but 5 gigs of memory instead of 3, I think.
Okay.
Which seems, yeah.
It's an odd number,
you
but
lose
okay.
a memory controller when you take off one of the shader blocks, I think.
Oh.
It just, like, that's the way it worked out. When they chopped off the shaders, they lost one of the memory controllers, I think, is how that works out. And then the Quadro P4000 is in the GTX.
1070?
Yeah, it's a GTX 1070 territory with, again, 128 fewer shaders and a slightly lower clock speed, but it's pretty negligible when you compare it to a 1070. And then the Quadro P5000, the $200 almost flagship Quadro GPU, is a GTX 1080.
Okay.
2000.
Oh, what'd I say?
200.
Oh, yeah, $2,000 GPU is a GTX 1080. And if you look at the photos of this, you can tell it's just a GTX 1080.
Yeah, it looks like
the same. It's got the same cooler with Quadro branding on it and everything. So that's kind of setting the stage. One thing that's interesting is the P4000, which is like the 1070 equivalent, is a single slot design.
Cool, so you can jam more of them in a system.
Exactly, which is very important when you're targeting renderings and you just need more GPUs in semi-small boxes for workstations. But it's a blower style cooler, but if you take a look, you see these sort of micro holes on the backplane there, and then vents sort of
towards the leading edge of the...
Yeah.
Speed holes.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, basically.
I thought it was interesting that they could kind of shove the GP... What's that? GP 104. Yeah, the GP 104, the almost flagship Pascal GPU into a single slot design for these Quadros, and the performance isn't that far off of a 1070.
Yeah.
In the
Probably a pretty loud fan when it gets going.
I didn't notice in particular using an open test bed. I mean,
It's more
it wasn't quiet, but I didn't particularly notice. Moving into some of the benchmarks. SpecView Perf is sort of one of the de facto applications for workstation graphics performance. It's just a whole bunch of things like OpenGL and DirectX performance, over a bunch of applications that are industry standards like CAD applications and rendering applications and stuff like that.
Ken has looked like he's been doing really important work over there with 3D models spinning on a desktop like all week long.
Yeah,
basically.
I think I'm just going to keep this running from now on, and I'll just look really important.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Get to work. I'm rendering. Leave me alone.
Ken's like designing airplanes and crap over there at his desk, man. Like, that's serious.
There are eight different benchmarks that the test that this benchmark runs through. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but essentially, if you look at the field here, this is a pretty representative example of their medical test, which is running through like 3D CT scans and cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
The Quadros sort of scale exactly how do you expect them. The P5000 is better than the P4000.
Yeah, yeah,
P4000 is better than the P2000.
It's also pretty linear.
Yeah, it's impressively linear, and you kind of get what you pay for. However, if you take a look at the last chart on the last bar of the chart is the Radeon Pro Duo. Fair notice, we didn't have any of the new FirePro WX series, I think it is the RX 480, newest sort of SKUs on the market. Professional graphics from them. So we use the Radeon Pro Duo for this review. And SpecView Perf only takes advantage of one GPU. It can't target more than one GPU. Okay. So this is only sort of technically seeing half of the performance.
So it's kind of nerfing the card, yeah.
Depending on what application you're using and if it can target more than one GPU.
Right.
But...
Well, even so, I mean, it does look a little bit inverted because it's so that Pro Duo is $200 more than the P2000.
Yeah, but it's also look at the teraflop. What's it like 16 teraflops for the Pro Duo?
Yeah, it's 16.
That's across two GPUs. But, so that's 8 teraflops for a single GPU. And what's the P2000?
Rated at 3.
Yeah, so you would expect it to walk all over in this test, but over all the tests that SpecView Perf is running, this is kind of the story that came out of.
Something's up there.
That's a little better.
Yeah, this was the one sort of standout. Autodesk Showcase seemed to take advantage of stuff. This is a DirectX rendering test, so that makes sense. That
I mean, it's more in line with the pricing.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as performance for price, right?
Yeah. So if we SpecView Perf,
what's the SNX 02 thing where it's doing like...
Yeah. I don't
wrong.
know. Something's wrong.
Something's wrong
That's
there.
obviously not how that GPU would perform under NX. How they had their workload spec'd and what version of NX they're using, and just a whole bunch of different variables.
Huh.
But SpecUperf is interesting if you have a specific application you're looking for in mind. You can get a general idea about that, and they publish a lot of documents about what exactly the workload's doing. So you could take a look at that if you have a specific use case. But
now things get interesting. Then.
Yeah, now we moved on to just sort of general performance rendering in OpenCL and CUDA, which is kind of the sweet spot for a lot of people buying these GPUs. Luxmark is... How long has Luxmark been around, Josh? It's been around forever for OpenCL.
Gosh, at least 10 years?
Yeah, like this is a tried and true industry standard benchmark for rendering. They keep adding new tests to make it more difficult. Like this is the room scene, which is the current most difficult scene. And if we take a look at the results there, it's a lot more of what you'd be expecting.
Doing.
That's pretty good for AMD now.
Yeah, so you compare the Radeon Pro Duo, which is about an 8 teraflop GPU, to the Quadro P5000, which is in the 8 teraflop sort of compute range, and they score about the same.
Yeah.
And then
but there's another one.
Yes. And the nice thing about Luxmark is it just allows you to target as many OpenCL devices as you want. So it scales perfectly to a second GPU.
Sweet.
So you have the Radeon Pro Duo sort of walking over everything in this OpenCL test. And the other interesting thing is the lack of a gap between the P4000 and the P5000.
That is interesting.
So they're very neck and neck. And it's like I want to say it's like $1,000 price difference between the two or something like that. It's
$1,100.
Yeah, $1,100 price difference between the two. So if you're looking for sort of...
You're getting diminishing returns, basically.
Yeah, that's the common thing here is the diminishing returns in rendering are a little more substantial than I would have expected.
Between that and the fact that it's a dual slot.
Yeah.
Like that really is...
That extra cooling...
So how do you get more than 100% scaling between the Pro Duo?
Yeah, it is actually more than 100.
That's a good question.
That's interesting. Huh. It's not a lot more than 100, but it's definitely more than 100.
Not more than 100.
1.2.
Huh. I don't know.
I mean, maybe it chopped up the workload into different tile size or something like that. I don't know.
Or it could be processing various phases between the two.
Yeah, I can't remember. I guess Luxmark does different passes, so I could potentially see how that might affect. Because it's not... I don't remember if it's tile-based render or if it's a sort of pass-based system. But if it was passes, I could see that maybe it's using one GPU to pre-calculate ahead and just getting faster than potential.
And if you're not round-tripping to main memory.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you get an extra 4 gigs of memory as well.
Be it.
True. Then we move on to Blender, Scott's favorite application.
Yes. He really likes Blender.
Yeah. Oh, and as Scott just pointed out in our chat, for the single GPU score for the Luxmark, that GPU was also the one that was running Windows.
Oh.
So
that would explain it.
It isn't necessarily the peak performance of the GPU. It's using it as the main display.
Yeah.
And
so it's
also rendering.
So you're losing some frame buffer space.
Yeah. So you're losing some potential performance there. So there is more to be gained from the second GPU than just the first.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. So we move on to Blender, which has both OpenCL and CUDA code paths. So the AMD parts are going through the OpenCL code path, and the Quadro GPUs are going through the CUDA code path.
So it's like the single core was about on par with the 2000, but you had a second core, so that put it on par with the 5000.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You can, if you compare sort of the, if you compare the Quadro P5000 to the dual GPU of the Pro Duo, which is 8 teraflops versus 16.8 teraflops, and they score in the same ballpark, you can tell how much more efficient the CUDA code path in some of these applications is than the OpenCL code path.
Okay.
So for your 7.5 to 8 minutes, you could either be using one GPU or two GPUs essentially to do the same amount of work. And then sort of the last test we ran was a CUDA-specific test using the NVIDIA iRay renderer in 3ds Max. And
what happened?
It's kind of the law of diminishing returns again. If you look at the gap between the P4000 and the P5000.
Oh, well, I was going to ask why there was no AMD results on that.
It's a CUDA renderer. You can run it on the CPU exclusively on AMD platforms, but as you can see, that's just so much slower that you wouldn't use that renderer essentially. Yeah. 3ds Max has a lot of plugin renderers that can be added to do specific things, like in this case, ray tracing, but there are also more agnostic ray tracing applications. We just kind of wanted to go for a highly optimized CUDA code path. And yeah, you can see the upgrade between the P4000 and the P5000 is probably not worth it, at least for the workload that we tested.
Yeah, more than twice the cost.
Yeah.
And it definitely was never seeing more than twice the performance.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like the gaming market. Is the price difference between a GTX 1070 and a GTX 1080 worth it?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was an sort of interesting foray into the professional graphics world that we don't necessarily take a lot of look at. I will say the Radeon Pro Duo at $800 is one heck of a deal. It launched at $1,500, but it now goes for $799.99.
For what I can do, yeah, that's
if you're using OpenCL applications that can target 2 GPUs, it's a pretty good choice. You do have to mount a radiator somewhere in your case, and it's a bigger and longer card, so you have to deal with that. True. You can't have as cool and quiet a workstation as you might want sitting on your desk if you're doing these sort of rendering tasks all day. But the Quadro 5000 is a $2,000 GPU, and there's a lot of things you could buy for that extra $1,200.
Yeah.
So I could see why the Quadro market exists.
You could buy a pair of the P4. No.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
The Radeon Pro Duo uses just the Radeon graphics drivers, and the NVIDIA stuff uses Quadro drivers, which have a separate hardware qualification list, and they're built to work with applications, and in theory more stable.
Yeah,
which is very important if you're making money off this stuff. But if you're just sort of a hobbyist, well, just Adobe Premiere, no, just don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of a look at workstation graphics.
Cool.
Nice rambling look. That's the longest I've ever talked in a row, especially on this podcast.
It's true.
So, oh God, please move on to something else.
Okay. Next up, Windows 10 Creators Update. Accessible on April 5th. Oh, hey, that's today. So you could have installed this a few days ago, actually, because the ISO of the build that turned into the Creators Update was available. But now you can basically just run like a quick little installer thing that kind of kickstarts the process and does the update. Yeah,
if you go to the Microsoft Windows 10 regular download page, they'll detect you're running Windows 10, and then there's a little downloader you grab, and it will walk you through the update. I did that a couple of hours ago.
Yeah. I installed from the ISO, but that was the similar process. Like it just
installed over top itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it started the process like from within Windows as if it was like just doing a Windows update almost.
Yeah.
You know, it was very similar.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. There were a couple of quirks.
So far, I haven't heard very much bad feedback.
Well, there were some things that
reasonable bad feedback.
There were some things that rubbed me the wrong way. They changed the context menu option when you shift right click on a folder. It doesn't open a regular command prompt. It opens PowerShell. Like they were.
You gotta learn to love PowerShell.
Well, yeah, but like a lot of the commands I usually run in PowerShell in command prompt don't directly translate over. You would figure it would just work, but the first one I tried didn't work. So I was like, oh, okay. How do I get this back to command prompt? So
no, you just need to install Bash on Windows and then launch Bash on PowerShell.
I could do that.
And then you can do whatever you want.
That's true.
The world is your oyster.
That's true.
You don't have to install grep on Windows anymore.
I need to play around with that actually because I have a whole bunch of grep style, Unix things installed on my box.
I know you do.
Yeah.
You should
Anyway.
do a review of that when you finally install it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say I didn't notice anything different with Creators Update. I don't even remember what they're supposed to add to the thing anymore.
You know, it pins a stupid mail app to the taskbar on you that you have to unpin as soon as you fire it up. And there's some other stuff.
And you can fix your command prompt thing with the registry edit.
Yeah.
Which I did.
I'll link to that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, there's a thing that involves changing permissions if you want to remove the PowerShell option, which is a pain in the butt. Like you have to change registry key tree permissions for stuff. Or you can just import a key that added the command prompt to your options, and then you can have both, which I think is more handy, right?
I went the method of sort of deleting it, but I think it still retained the PowerShell option. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But
yeah.
And they did some other stuff. They changed like the Windows Defender now has a UI that's like the, Metro style app or whatever the heck the name of that is now. Like it's the cleaner interface. It's not the old school Windows Defender interface from when it was introduced in like Windows 8 or something, or whenever Defender came out.
7?
Or what might have been Vista.
It existed in the 7, but it wasn't quite as...
They called it something else.
Yeah, they called it... It was Essentials, Security Essentials back then. But it was still the same UI. It looked the same.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, it looked the same as the tool that Microsoft acquired.
Weird.
They basically just put a freaking Microsoft logo on it and just kept on.
Gee, I can't imagine them ever doing that.
Well, I do have to hand it to them. That was, of all the companies to pick, like it's a good, clean, like AV engine that doesn't really have a lot of overhead to it. So,
yeah,
doesn't really get in the way. So it's good enough for most people. Imagination Technologies, who a lot of people probably don't even know who the heck they are, releases Apple GPU loss statement. So Imagination Technologies apparently was the company making all of the GPUs on all of the Apple mobile devices.
I read a story that mentioned they were providing chips or IP for the original iPod. Even like their relationship with Apple goes way far back.
Yeah. And Apple announced, and not immediately, but like within the next year and a half or 2 years,
24 months.
Yeah, that they're going to move away from that using their technology, and Apple's gonna like roll their own thing, which I think is pretty ambitious. Also, considering they had a separate company doing all this for all this time. And now they're just going to like try to do it on their own. But hey, if they can do it, I guess more power to them. But that was also like something on the order of half of the income of this company. It was
like 65% or something like that.
Yeah, more than half.
Yeah, like more than half of this, Imagination Technologies income was coming from Apple. So when Apple announces this thing that their stock like tanked to like half in like 1 day or something, and not Apple stock, but Imagination Technology stock, obviously.
Josh, surely you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah.
I ain't got... Okay.
If you don't have any thoughts on this, then you can't go to London. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Imagination Tech is pretty good portion of their revenue comes from Apple, as we've mentioned. And they've got some good technology. I mean, they've got guys and they've got a portfolio of previous tech and stuff that they're working on now. And Apple going on its own is going through a landmine of licenses. And it's going to be curious to see who they decide to kind of do some cross-licensing with, whether it be AMD and saying, hey, you know what, we'll keep your products in our desktops and notebooks and whatnot. If you go ahead and give us a good deal on some licensing of some basic GPU tech so we can, have our buttocks covered legally from all these other companies in the world, the NVIDIAs, the Imaginations, ARM, whoever. And it's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, building a GPU from scratch is not easy. Back in 1998, it was a whole lot easier. Doing that now in a product that is a sub 5 watt if not even a half a watt in terms of power consumption, it's a pretty big deal, and it's not easy. I mean, certainly they've bought a lot of companies that are helping them do this, but GPUs are still hard, and getting compatibility with OpenGL. I mean, there's some people saying that if Apple does this, then they're only going to support Metal. But how many applications out there are OpenGL for Android and iOS?
Yeah,
it's
the
asking
vast
a lot.
majority.
Yeah.
For them to do something like saying, "Hey, you got to port everything over to Metal." It's a lot of man hours and a lot of applications, a lot of backwards compatibility. That's just not going to happen because guys with an app that may be 2 years old will not find it. It's
not going to be worth it.
Wise, yeah, it's not going to be worth it. And I mean, they're going to make it compatible, and they're going to sell a couple for a few bucks, and it's not going to be worth man hours of programming to get it over to Metal. So I don't know how this is going to go.
They're going to have to make it compatible with everything that worked on the older the Imagination Tech GPU.
Yeah, well,
and I don't even think I believe this myself, but Apple has got the hubris to think that if you don't program Metal, it's not going to show up on the iTunes store, and think that that's actually going to work because people will be desperate to get back on the iTunes store, even if, like you say, they're losing cash trying to port their app that costs 50 cents a buck over to the new API.
Yeah.
I can still see Apple, or at least some people there, thinking, yeah, you know what, guys, we could totally do this, and everyone would have to buy a new phone because the old ones won't work on our store anymore.
Well, that wouldn't be the case.
No, that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, it's
because
hard
current phones support Metal.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah,
but
I'm
sure they could find the new ones.
They have had a history of making some pretty big changes.
That's true.
I mean, going from Power Architecture to x86.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
adding a second button to their mice.
15 to 24 months seems to be about the time frame, like the run out they would give it. And there are probably reasons they haven't implemented technologies past OpenGL ES 3.1, I think. Like, iOS is not anywhere near on the current version of OpenGL.
Yeah.
Even for the mobile stuff.
And you look at the industry analysts sort of saying, pretty much everyone who wants a smartphone at this point has one. Yeah. There are a couple of markets opening up, but that's Huawei and Lenovo and
say that again.
Yeah, I got that one wrong, didn't I?
That's just the Canadian pronunciation.
Yeah,
Huawei.
I only ever read it; I never hear it, or let alone see a bloody phone. So the emerging markets, they don't even have a shot at. So they're how do we get people buying phones again? How do we get the 8 years ago when our new iPhone came out, people were lined up for days. How can we bring that back? Well, let's throw everything out and change it completely. See what happens.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the cynic in me, which is a very big portion of me. If you ever listen to the podcast,
and you're a cynic? No.
The cynic in me believes that this could just be a power play to buy up Imagination in a couple of years, which would just be so shitty.
Yeah, they would have some serious lawsuits.
Yeah.
English courts would come down on them.
True.
Yeah, but could they afford it?
Probably.
Yeah.
How about this? They get their own chip out. They do Metal. They promise all of these nice things, plus they will re-add in a headphone jack.
In that case, I'm sold.
Well, we see the path to the future.
I'm fine. I would be okay with it then. That company went out of business. I don't care. Got the headphone jack back. Yeah.
So, okay, one last question, Josh. What GPU will we see in the iPhone this year? Will it be will we see a Power VR in the GPU in the iPhone this year?
Oh yeah. It's far too late to be doing something from somebody else. And so I mean, the way that
They
the way
said,
that sorry, go ahead.
They said that within 15 to 24 months, Apple will be done with them, which if you assume some sort of time where they have to license IP or pay them some sort of royalties to support old devices, that would put you at about 15 to 24 months.
When's the next one coming out? 10 months from now?
Yeah, September.
September? Yeah, the next one's going to be Imagination. I mean, they've already signed the contracts, paid the money, implemented the IP, and they'll get royalties and whatnot. But I can see, I mean, if they really do take a hard stance, it is not impossible to design something like this if you hire enough guys and gals to do the work and to get something that will just plain work.
So they're going to fill 1/3 of their ring being the ring-shaped building. They're going to fill 1/3 of that. It's going to be like a pie.
Engineers.
Yeah, it's going to be like a pie of it, like one big pie size GPU, right? You can literally take their campus and just make it into a pie chart and be like, okay, who's working on what? Here's the little slices, literally. And, probably even changes colors as you walk from space to space. It's like, all right, now you're in the GPU area.
It's not quite that big. I mean, we're not talking NVIDIA, AMD type. I mean, Imagination does not have that many engineers as compared.
Right. Yeah.
But they're very specialized in what they do.
Yeah.
So,
is this a move Apple had to make in order to replace Intel on the notebook side?
No.
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, I could see them thinking it might give them an opportunity, but I just don't see it working.
I mean, you obviously couldn't use Power VR GPUs.
Think about the previous move from Intel going from NVIDIA to AMD as a cross-licensing partner.
We think maybe? Like, that isn't official yet, is it?
Man, no, but
I mean, it's probably a thing.
Yeah. It kind of closes a little loop there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
What do we got next? DDR5.
I just got used to DDR4.
So this is information that looks like, I think, Jeremy, you're just focusing on what came out of SNIA on this, right?
That's pretty much all we really got.
Okay, so basically you're talking about like the specs. So SNIA is looking at like the JEDEC like specs for DDR5 and probably dealing with how they're going to deal with testing it and certifying it and et cetera.
It's the bottom one that's interesting.
Well, yeah, that's NVDIMM stuff, of course. Yeah. So there's, they're showing 3 different types. So like then there's memory map DRAM, that's N, even though you would think that the N would be NAND, but it's not. Then there's NVDIMM F, which is flash. So that's like your NAND flash memory. And they're showing like relative amounts of times here. Those are the interesting points because the type that has DRAM on it is going to be tens of nanoseconds. The type that has NAND on it is going to be tens of microseconds. So there's like 1,000x gap between those two. If only there was
there's like a thing in between DRAM and NAND.
Oh wait, there's an NVDIMM P, and they're actually saying it's running in hundreds of nanoseconds. In other words,
is that latency familiar?
It's like 10 times the latency of RAM, but it's like 100 times faster than Flash. Where have we seen those numbers before?
I don't know.
Imagination?
Yeah, if you want to start singing the Disney song. Yeah, so basically they're talking Crosspoint. Or any other competitor's equivalent of any kind of phase change-ish kind of, non-volatile thing that's faster than Flash.
So,
and is X-Point JEDEC?
What do you mean?
No.
It's not like there's not a JEDEC thing. There's not a JEDEC thing for Crosspoint. Like
exactly.
It's not.
So
yeah,
JEDEC's going, we need to have one. Here's our new standard. Well, somebody make it for us, please.
Sure. But I mean, it's not like Intel is going to make their own NVDIMM standard, really. They're going to follow whatever comes out of JEDEC. Like, that's pretty much how Intel works. Like, so there needs to be a standard, is the point, for people to follow, and then the companies will just make the thing work with the standard. But that does give you a interesting, idea there on the speeds. And then we've already seen, like, from the leak of the P4800X, which is going to be the Intel Optane Enterprise SSD, like that right on the spec sheet says your typical latency is going to be less than 10 micro, which puts it, right, it's probably operating right around 10 micro. Whereas the NAND on here, they're saying tens of microseconds, but I would really say like, a full NAND SSD, you're talking like, by tens, they mean really like 90 or like 100 or something like that. And that's mostly waiting on the flash. That's about how long the flash takes to turn around. So yeah, you might as well consider that like hundreds of microseconds for that center entry there versus tens for a PCIe cross-point thing. Tens of micro, and then hundreds of nano for a same crosspoint, just installed on a DIMM form factor where you're not trying to hop through a controller and go over PCI, and all that stuff adds latency, basically. It's part of the reason that like the hype Intel and Micron kind of goofed a little when they overhyped the launch of crosspoint, and then computer infrastructure is like not where it needs to be to totally take advantage of it until you can do stuff like this NVDIMM thing. And that's going to still take some time. So in the meantime, you have to deal with some products coming out that are still beating the crap out of Flash stuff, but not going as fast, not going like 1/10 the speed of RAM quite yet. But chat's asking about what's my opinion of crosspoint endurance. I think it will be just fine.
Don't get him started.
I'm not even going any further than that.
We'll probably have a review of some crosspoint stuff at some point.
I think if you read a thing that's really bashing hard on crosspoint, they're probably just a hater at this point, because nothing I have seen or tested has told me otherwise yet. So
it doesn't count till you let Ryan touch it.
Not letting Ryan touch it. He'll break it. Doesn't matter what it is.
Maybe you can do writes on it for like a year.
Well, you can actually do random writes pretty darn quick on something like Crosspoint. When the random write 4K speed, if you do the math, ends up being the same as the sequential speed, that's saying something. It just saturates the bus, or saturates its controller regardless. Maybe not saturating the bus quite yet, but oh well. What's next? DDR5. AMD releases Radeon Crimson ReLive. You have to say it right. Can't say ReLive, even though that's how everybody wants to. 17.4.1. Scott wrote this up. What was the big deal about the thing that they were like?
You get more asynchronous space work.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, this is the one. Okay, so they
reprojection and space work.
Yeah, so there's it's not that they're adding that; it's that they're supporting more cards with that, right? No. This is the first driver
they're adding space warp to the Fiji and like the older Fury, the 390 and the 290.
Okay,
and they're adding support for async reproduction and SeamVR. And that supports the RX480 and the 470.
Reprojection, not reproduction.
No,
and that's something that's
so much more exciting.
Yeah, and that wasn't previously there.
Yes,
right.
They did not support async reprojection at all
in SteamVR. That was something that NVIDIA did support.
Yes,
but AMD did. So that's good that they're getting more on par with NVIDIA now in the VR stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't know how much use there is for space warp on those higher end GPUs like a 390 or Fury.
Can NVIDIA space warp?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And AMD can space warp on other older GPU, or not older, like
the RX series.
Yeah, the RX series.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean,
newer but less powerful. Yeah.
Sure.
But less powerful.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm still waiting for the NVIDIAs to all the other simultaneous reprojection stuff to actually be adopted by some software other than
Their demo?
just NVIDIA's demo. Yeah,
I think it might be in a game or two, but
I need to look for that and like actually do some testing because like the performance gains were supposed to be pretty darn good.
That Robo one, I think.
Robo Recall. I
think it does.
I think you're right.
Yeah, but unfortunately, actually, now that I think about it, I'm only on a 980, so I can't use that feature anyway.
Wah wah. Better upgrade. 1080 Ti.
Well, I am looking at pricing on them. I might buy one.
What do you mean you're looking at pricing? The pricing's never going to change on that GPU.
No, actually, I'm waiting for it to come down to MSRP still.
Yes. Good luck with that.
You know.
So you're waiting for Vega.
Okay. Yes. Maybe. Mad Catz is no longer. Didn't this story come out on like April Fool's?
Yeah.
Yep.
They filed for Chapter 7 on April
and it's
1st.
not-
A lot of people
and
took this like deeply personally too. It's strange.
Well,
They've been around a long time.
Yeah, they've been
Everyone
around-
has a special connection with Mad Catz.
First, they've been around a long time. Second, their PR pushes are significant.
Really?
True.
I was on their list. And I'm telling you, every other day there was a Mad Catz, and not just like a, hey, come look at our stuff. No, it was like, we're announcing this new thing. Like every other day, literally, it was some new thing from them. It could be a cable, for crying out loud, but it was something, right? Yeah, I mean, just, so they must have had some kind of decent following to them. And they had, what looked like halfway decent, relatively low-cost stuff that they were selling. But, yeah, now they're not.
Yeah.
So-
Who else is going to make the crappy third-party controller you give to your friend?
Well, you just have to go with the new old stock of these.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, Mad Catz actually did make a lot of higher quality stuff at the end. Like, they kind of revitalized the fight stick market.
Yeah. They were ramping. They were ramping
making
up.
Very high quality fight sticks that weren't very expensive, and they were very big in that market. So like, they didn't just always make pieces of crap. That's not why they went out of business.
True.
But it's fun to remember them that way.
Oh well.
Sigh.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, wasn't Satec part of them?
Yeah, they
Am I
sold that to
understanding that?
Logitech earlier.
And like,
or
I had
late last year.
I have like 4 of those keyboards at my house still.
Cytec make keyboards?
Yeah.
I still have Cytec joysticks here.
They were-
Yeah,
I used one-
joysticks makes sense.
They were the like original cheap backlit keyboard because it was like an organic LED backlight behind, transparent keycaps, basically.
Yeah.
It wasn't individual key RGB LED, anything fancy like that.
I don't want it
but,
then.
But it was a backlit keyboard that you could get at the time for like $50 or something.
Yeah.
And like when they were brand new, like when backlighting was like just had become a thing. So, at the same time you had the Optimus or whatever keyboard for like, it says $1,500 or whatever versus $50 for just like, blue backlight. Yeah.
Many fond memories of playing Mech Warrior with a Cytec controller.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
But that's okay. Logitech's got them. They're safe.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah.
Probably.
No, it's Logitech.
Nothing will kill
They
Logitech.
sold that off to Logitech,
I
I
can't
think.
explain it, but nothing will kill it.
Yeah, that's true.
I meant Logitech might kill them.
Well, maybe. But they probably still sell the joysticks.
Probably.
Just rebrand them or something. Put a big G on them. That glows and pulses in different colors.
RGB,
but,
RGB.
RGB
There you
glowing,
That'll be
flight
their,
controller.
premium line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Done.
Marketed. All right. Hardware software picks of the week. Ken, you got a crunch time for you, buddy.
I'm
Jeremy,
But
you're up. What do you got?
So I broke down and I'm at least trying to upgrade to a GTX 1080. Strange story. But yeah, I'm going to move over from AMD to NVIDIA because the deal that they're offering right now on this one, which is just ridiculously overclocked from Asus, this 8 gig ROG Strix. Its boost clock is 1835 megahertz. And it's selling for less than a lot of the ones that are just clocked at stock speeds.
Oh.
It's got the Strix cooler. It's a little bit better deal down in the States, but even up here in Kazakhstan, right now it's $111 off. So
there's a rebate, at least in the US.
In the US, there's one of these stupid mail-in rebates that you can send back to Asus, but still,
Old school
it's an extra
rebate.
$30 off.
Yeah, that brings it down to $515 for
Which
a
is
1080.
Dirt cheap for a 1080.
Yeah, especially a 1080 with a
And
nice
an
core
overclocked
that's
1080.
you know, yeah. Huh.
Because some of us are old and lazy and don't have the time to perfectly overclock something right away.
Honestly, even if you want to overclock it, you're a little bit smarter going with, you know, the higher end like that, because that's to the point where they will bin them, right? Somewhat, or at least they'll test them, and the ones you're getting are like, you know, that they can go reasonably faster, so you're still going to have, you know, if you were going to overclock that versus just some random, you know, base model one, you're probably going to have more success with that one, with a Strix.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that DirectCU 3 cooling is pretty damn good. It tests very well.
Triple fan, pretty decent, beefy looking cooler on that thing. Looks cool.
Yeah,
Beefy.
not bad.
Yeah.
Speaking of beefy.
Speaking of beefy.
Beefy. You know,
soda.
You can't be much of a gamer if you've never had a little Boylan's. Little Boylan's, some old time cola, especially the birch beer.
I've never had birch beer.
You've never had it?
I don't think so.
It's like root beer with a real good kick.
Huh.
Yep.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's not quite.
You think it's going to
ginger beer
stain your
kick, but
tongue
it's-
this strange red color. It's fantastic.
I'm more of a ginger beer man, because look at me.
No, actually, if you like ginger beer, you'll like the
this.
birch beer. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just I'm stepping away from hardware, going to the little wetware, and if you of course, the big Pepsi thing going on now with protests.
Josh's pick got political.
Yeah, let's just take it back a couple of steps.
You know, I watched that commercial and it didn't it was just like, okay, it's a commercial.
The first time I saw it was watching the evening news tonight. And I'm like, what?
I honestly missed that entire controversy.
Been babbling about all day.
I don't understand. Like, it was just, it's okay, it's a commercial. Yeah.
No, I missed it entirely. Like, I didn't see it as it was happening just until it got pulled.
I've never watched it. So, but I just wanted Boylan's because Boylan's is good cola.
Delicious. Boylan's is great.
Is. I guess their cream soda is fantastic. I've had their regular root beer, their regular cola, which is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
The birch beer.
They've got like a good cherry cola too.
That's one of the top.
Yeah,
I might have to try some of these. You guys are
all right.
You guys are tempting me.
Boylan's is good.
Yeah,
and they're everywhere.
Boylan's is good.
What was it? 1850 something they started out.
Yeah, they're well over 100 years old. So
yeah. Ken, you might have to zoom that in and pan it over, because look at what it's going to do on the screen.
What do you need it to do?
I don't know. All right, so my
It'll be
pick.
fine.
So we were trying to get a VPN running at the office. It was something we've been toying around with. We tried the built-in Windows one.
Weird. Huh?
Although, I mean, I'd seen plenty of guides, and it looked like it just kind of worked for most people. And it's not like we have a lot of machines that we needed to do with, like, we were forwarding the right port. It just didn't want to work. Don't understand why. So we're like, all right, well, crap that idea. Then I start Googling around for just, open source, like free VPN stuff. The first thing we found was OpenVPN, which is not my pick.
No, it's not.
Because Ken and I both downloaded this thing. I installed it. We looked at it. Our eyes glazed over, like on the third or fourth layer worth of, you have to set up this config file for that and that config file for this, and you have to make your certificates, and you have to do this and do that. And by the way, there's no GUI at all, period. Everything is like setting up these things.
Having a GUI, but they should at least give you like a base config to work off of.
This was the stereotypical open source project, right? Like, totally was. I'm shocked I didn't have to compile it myself. Okay? I was that, really, seriously. Anyway, so then we're like, okay, let me just go back to Google and look around a little bit more. Next entry down on my result just happened to be this thing called SoftEther. And they actually make their point, like halfway down their page, there's an actual table comparing it directly against OpenVPN, feature for feature, like which things it does and which things the other one does, etc. Right? And it kind of,
I do have a bit of a problem. They're advertising themselves as having more lines of code and that being a good thing.
well, you know, I will say it has a GUI. It's very flexible. It's a service you install on the main machine. You want to be acting as the VPN, like the pipe that's passing through, you know, handling all your VPN stuff. And then there's like a console thing for configuration that you don't even need to run on that machine. You can just like point it at the server that's handling it, you know, so you could be anywhere else on your network and just kind of sign into it. Really easy to configure. We probably had it up and running
20 minutes, maybe
20 minutes tops. Like, and that was with us actually walking through and properly setting up, like, you
poking
know,
around a bit.
we were setting up pre-shared keys and actually making sure everything was encrypted and everything else. And it was like, we didn't have to go through any kind of big hoopla, anything. It was just, everything
was much better than the 6-hour Slack conversation about the first one you tried.
Basically.
Yeah.
But this was just really, really much easier. To the point where I wouldn't even bother with, even though I'm like I'm going to probably install this at my house to set up the VPN there. Like, as opposed to just using the built-in Windows one, which might actually work at my house, but
yeah, maybe.
You know,
if you're doing dead simple stuff and not giving it anything that it might not expect, it does seem to work.
Yeah.
If you even have the slightest layer of complexity, or you've even got someone who's just not coming from the same place all the time, she gets busy.
Yeah. And I mean this one supports a lot of stuff. Like you can, like it supports iOS connections.
Well, I mean, that's just a matter of what
like
app you're using.
LTTP. Like, well, my point is like the Windows one and even the OpenVPN one don't really give you any choices on what you're trying to configure.
Yeah,
what kind of VPN you want to.
You can't really choose a different protocol.
Right. And this one literally has like you can choose the protocol.
You want a protocol? We got a protocol.
Yeah, they basically have them all there. You pretty much just choose which ones you want, and you know, it was just really, really simple, and it's free.
Yeah.
So can't really complain there. Ken.
I don't think I've picked this. But mechanical keyboards are cool.
Yeah, especially if they're cost effective, hopefully.
This one isn't too bad.
Did you pick like a $500 mechanical keyboard?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Do you like mechanical keyboards, but do you not like them to look like a gaming product and have lights, like weird facets and just look gamery?
Oh, okay. So you're talking like a regular keyboard that just happens to be mechanical.
I'm talking about like a simple mechanical keyboard that's built really well.
Like a businessy mechanical keyboard. It has dip switches.
It has dip switches.
What's the dip switches for?
You can change it between layouts. You can, like on Mac, one of the dip switches changes between Alt and Command, so it swaps those.
Oh.
You can turn the Windows key off.
What is it,
with
Ken?
a dip switch?
Huh.
I don't have to pry it off?
What is what?
You didn't say what it was.
What the key? What's it called?
What's it called?
Oh, the code keyboard.
Code.
I was working up to it, but I got excited.
You got distracted and excited.
I got distracted by the keyboard. It's for professionals.
I should have remembered because I posted a link to something and you got really excited about it.
I mean, it looks cool.
Yeah.
And it's backlit too, right?
Yeah, it's single color backlit.
Just white backlight.
Yeah, 2 levels, I think, maybe like 2 different backlight levels.
No frills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the 8710 keyless version with white switches. I think mine was about 120 to 130. Retails like 140-ish.
Oh, okay. So
I
you
mean,
can get it for a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. I bought mine off Amazon. It doesn't seem to be in stock on Amazon anymore. These keyboards are actually like coming in and out of stock. Like they have issues with keeping stock. There's a lot of demand for them.
Cherry blues, clears, browns, or reds. That's on that list, right?
Or greens. I think they have just about every switch, to be honest. You might be able to get with like weird stuff like blacks. Maybe not blacks. Looks like clears, blues, greens, browns.
Now, it looks, was that a code down there with the 60%, or is that a different one?
Yeah, they do make a 61 key. They do make a 60% now, which I think are crazy and I would never use, but it's just too small. I've actually been finding myself wanting a numpad because I've been doing a lot of Excel lately. But when I bought this keyboard, I wasn't doing a lot of Excel, so I might have to get a USB numpad. because I really like this keyboard. It's built really well. I had Alex type on it. Has like a really thick aluminum backplate, so even though I have MX clear switches in it, which don't have a click at the end, they're linear switches, it still feels really solid, and it feels very tactile, which is exactly what you want out of a mechanical keyboard. It's built really well. Like I said,
And you can use them to bludgeon people if you ever get your house broken into.
Yeah, that thing is a tank.
Cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like a gamer product, which I very much appreciate.
All right. Cool, man. That's it. Unless we got any other.
Nope.
No. All
I
right.
ain't got ship.
Okay. PCPro.com/podcast. Don't forget. Check out the podcast, show notes, all the stuff we talked about, links to it, as long as Ken puts the link to his code keyboard in there.
Probably. Maybe. Not.
Twitter.com/Ryan Shrout. Your last chance to bug the boss, who's probably trying to go to sleep right about now.
Ding,
Perfect time.
ding.
Do it. Make the little birdie
Got to
tweet.
get up early to golf.
Oh, is that what he's doing? Shoot.
Oh, Hilton Head?
That's what he claims he's doing.
Everybody tweet Ryan. All right, well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
With that, Allyn Malventano.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Ken Addison.
Thanks for listening, guys. Good night.
If you enjoyed this content, consider supporting in-depth technical content by contributing at patreon.com/PCPer.